Great. So let's get started. So your first task will be converting an implementation of the priority queue data structure from Java to Python. And you will do this one with the EI support. And your second task will be converting an implementation of the try data structure from Java to Python. And you will do that one without the EI support. We'll also take a break between the two tasks since the session is about 2 hours. So before we begin, are you connected to your VPN? Eunice, are you connected?
Yeah. Yes, I am connected.
Okay, perfect. So first, let me tell you a little bit about this code translation task. So the task is to produce a complete and working Python translation within 30 minutes. By complete, I mean all of the functionality and documentation from the Java code should be translated. And by working, I mean that the Python code should be tested for correctness. As I mentioned earlier, there's more work to do to accomplish an absolutely perfect translation than what can be done within 30 minutes. So really, I'm asking you to do as much as you can in the time that you have. But there may be trade-offs in how you spend your time, such as whether you choose to translate all of the functionality first or to translate a portion of it while testing it to make sure it works. How you navigate this trade-off is completely up to you. There are a few other things I should mention about this task. You will be using an online version of the VS Code editor in the study, which has a few minor differences from the desktop application. But in general, all of the menu commands and keystrokes are available and should just work fine. But if you encounter any difficulty with respect to the VS Code editor, or if you need any help, just let me know and I can help you with that. I won't be able to answer any technical questions about the code though, or what it's supposed to do. But what I can tell you is that the provided Java implementation is correct. Also, when you make the translation, please try to preserve the naming of the class and the method names, but we are less concerned with how you name your variables. You can also use any resources you feel would be helpful, such as searching the web or Stack Overflow or running any of the code. We have both Java and Python installed in the online editor, so you can run either code. Also, I will give you a 5-minute warning when the time is almost up, so you know to start wrapping up your work. We also ask that as you work on the task, you think out loud and tell us what you're thinking and what you're doing. This would really help us understand how you approach the task, what you're thinking about as you do it. If you're quiet, I'll gently remind you to keep thinking out loud if that's okay. Do you have any questions?
No, so far it sounds reasonable.
Okay. All right, so let's start with the task one. So in this task, you will translate the priority queue data structure from Java to Python with the help of an EI code translation system. So this system is able to automatically translate code from Java to Python, but it is not a perfect system. So the translated code may contain errors in it. We used the system ahead of time to create 5 separate Python translations for you, which you will see when you open the editor. How you use these translations is completely up to you. So I will ping you a link to the code editor. So if you can open this link and if you can please share your screen.
All right, just give me one moment. I see the link. Opening the link.
I pinged it in the WebEx chat.
Okay, and you want me to share that?
Yep.
Right. Okay, just a second. All right.
Okay, perfect. So priority queue.java is the source Java implementation, which is correct. The priority queue AI 1 to 5 are the 5 AI produced translations. How you use that is completely up to you, and you should put your solution in the priority queue.py file. I will go mute for now, and I will start the 30-minute timer when I say it. Just keep thinking out loud as you go through the task, and I will remind you when there's 5 minutes left. Sounds good?
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so
So,
priority queue Java is the Java program. Priority queue AI 1 through 5 are translations, and my solution is supposed to go in priority queue. I just take a quick look at the Java program. Ports, array list, connection, collections, list. Java code to implement a priority queue using an array list based implementation of a binary heap. This class can be parameterized for any element class that supports comparable interface on itself. The queue allows one to store comparable elements and remove them in order defined by the comparator. This implementation with the highest priority items insertion and removal are the log-n operation in terms of queue. Priority queue, T extends comparable T. So priority queue of T's. That's an array list of T's. Creates, insert a new T. Adds an item to the heap. And while index and stuff. Pairs it. Remove size peak is empty. Enumerate heapify. Translation code priority queue. I'm just quickly trying to spot differences. Okay. Okay. There is nothing in terms of testing already provided for me. I would have to do that myself. And all I have is a class to start with. It's translated into a class and all of the other AI versions. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is to first translated stuff from the first program. Just plop it in there. Deliver would be nice. I wonder if I can just diff them to see what the differences are between the different AI versions. I guess I can. So what I'm going to do is just quickly diff them, see the differences between these generated things to figure it. I already see some white space differences, which I don't care about. I think this together. Okay. So minus all W. Ignore all spaces. Yeah. It's just a variable. Okay. This one doesn't return the index. Insert. Does that matter? There is no return. So I don't know why that's. Okay, so that's irrelevant. Len self heap index versus length of heap -1. That's like a huge difference. Okay. Let's look at the creates a new list. This guy creates an empty list. Okay. Insert heap index come from? Oh, it's index. Okay, I'm going to rely on my knowledge of Python. I believe this just finds the index of the item. That doesn't make sense. Why did you? Java version, the index is size of the heap, which is like free index. Then you add item, and while index is greater than 0, surprised that nobody just directly translated it into. That's bizarre. Okay, index, you get the index of. I'm just going to look up documentation for Python list index. Just skip past most of it. This is on it. List index, return a zero-based index. Items whose value is equal to X, raise the value. There's no such item, optional, start, end. Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. So this is going to return, this is going to throw an exception if it's not already in there. X. It doesn't make sense to me why it would translate to that. But anyway, I'm going to do direct translation. Self heap insert. Takes the same spec inserts it at the end while index is greater than 0. Parent index, looks the same. Parent is pop. So that's nobody's using the parent index in the pop operation. Pop by default, I believe it removes the last item. Yeah, returns the last item. So, I mean, if your index is being divided by 2, that seems wrong. You want your parent is going to be in the middle, and this is not going to do that. I'm going to quickly check if any of the other ones did that. So nobody did that. What is this thing at a high level? So it finds the parent, gets it, compares it. If the comparison fails, it makes it swaps the 2. Yeah. So it's just bubbling up. This loop is bubbling the item up. Inserts, or so it inserts it into that, and then it inserts the item, and it bubbles it up to the right position. So this loop is just doing that. Translated version, it was getting the last. This is wrong, obviously. So it's getting the last item. If the parent is less than that, it inserts item. Yeah, this doesn't make sense at all. Because parent index and parent aren't the same. I'll take that, I'm just gonna pass that to make it make sense. Then you get actually, you know what? I don't have any ability to test the Java version. I did, but I don't think I want to. Sure, I want to test it. Write any code to test the Java version. Index. Parent index, parent is less than item at the parent index, and then third parent at the index. Move if heap SQL turn null, turn none. If index, this is get 0, size -1, and it gets that. Why is this doing that? That's obviously not right. So I'm just gonna check index. It's heap index. So at this point, I'm wondering if I should just forget about what the translations provided and do this on my own, because when I look at them, the 2 versions, and I see things that seem to be mistakes, kind of makes me doubt the rest of it and doubt whether I should rely on what was emitted. there's nothing in the heap, return null. Otherwise, get the last item, get the index, the last index, get the first item, get swap the last item and last index, get the first item, place the last item at index O, remove the last item, and then heap of item results. Yeah, okay. So you remove the element at the top of the heap, you put the last element at the top of the heap, and then you call heapify to bubble it down to where it needs to be. What is this doing? This was if heap is empty, return none. Last index. Yeah, this is definitely wrong. So I'm going to just, and that makes no sense. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to do what I said I was going to do and just not rely on that thing anymore. Index, get the last index, get the first item in the list. Element equals the O equals a second pop. Pop. So that's these two. Then I have to call heapify. There's the heapify here. So I'll have to okay. It's okay. Peak. Get. If not self, if it's not empty, pop the head without removing it. So that's another incorrect translation. Let's kind of quickly look to see if got something else from the other versions. Peak. Oh. If not empty, nope. Get. Okay. If not empty, looks okay. And these guns have pop. So this one looks like it's funny that comment looks okay. It says it's not going to remove it, but then the code it generates the opposite. Yeah, just a second. I'm busy doing something. I will put more time on YouTube Kids for you. So you can occupy yourself for the next half hour or so.
Yanis, you were asking that to me or to someone else?
Sorry,
Oh, no, no worries. I thought like you were talking to me. No worries.
no. I was speaking to my daughter. Sorry.
Okay, okay. No, no, no worries at all.
Okay, where was I? I think I was on peak. Peak always gets something. I forget. I have to look at ArrayList documentation to remember what ArrayList. What happens when I'm just going to look at this discrepancy of the Python code checks if you have something. And this is going to throw index out of bounds if you don't have a priority. So I guess the Java version is going to throw an exception if there's nothing in the heap. Otherwise, it's going to return that. Python version, it's not going to do that. Let's see, Python array, Python list dot. Yeah. Um, Python. Just reminding myself that this doesn't look right to me. Well, it's not clear to me what I'm supposed to return when the original program returns throws a Java exception, but you'll get a Python, you go into the Python index exception. So I guess that makes sense to do the same thing. Is empty, empty.
Just as a time check, we have 5 minutes remaining.
Okay. Wow. That was like fast. Heap dot empty. Was there an empty? I don't think there was empty. There's an empty methods. It's empty. Enumerate. Copies the heap. It's an empty one while not empty. And salt. Okay. So it makes a copy into saved heap. Result is empty. And then while heap, it removes the result and then registers the internal one back to the way it was. Okay. So copy, copy. What is copy? Enumerate copy. Okay. I guess this is supposed. Oh, no, copy module. Okay, so it makes result while heap empty. Interpreter. Yeah, okay. I find myself having to remind myself whether these methods exist or not because I do Java, like I do enough Java and Python programming that this looks kind of wrong in Python and I recognize that it's wrong. Well, not empty. So, well, then 0, I guess. Highest priority. It's not empty. So that is not empty. You would do some stuff. This. If for items in result, if item has an attribute, dictionary like, and it has a priority. Oh, where did that come from? Where did you? Makes no sense. Where did it get? The highest priority item here. Of yeah, there's no priority is implicitly the first item in the list is implicitly. Why would it do that? So that, yeah, I don't understand. X for X in results if X priority equals 0. So it's scanning through all the items and filtering out ones that, if they have.
So we're done with our 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you can just like save this.
Save it.
I think it is automatically saved. So
Yeah, it's automatically saved.
Pinged you another link. This is the survey Gizmo link for this part of the survey.
Okay. Can I close all of these tabs,
Yeah.
or do I need them?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you can. But keep your screen sharing open.
Okay. I'll leave the browser like that, I guess. I'll reshare.
Okay. Yeah.
Browser when I open one up. Okay, second link is for Survey Gizmo.
Yes.
You want that shared as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
And before we get started on this, if you had to go for like a minute or two, we can like, do that.
I think I'm good for now. Participant ID, is that, can you see the survey shared?
No, I cannot. It's just a white screen for me.
Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, but your screen is like all white. I don't see the survey Gizmo. Maybe like
it looks like WebEx is having some problems, or it stopped responding. I think I'm probably gonna have to forcefully close WebEx and then rejoin the meeting. So just give me a second.
Okay.
Should still be okay for you. Sorry about that. Can you still hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Okay. Let me find that link. Can you paste the link again? My chat window is
Yep. Yes.
empty now.
Mm.
Okay. Let me try sharing that. Share content.
Yeah, I can see that now.
Okay.
So you are participant P30, P30.
Okay.
Yeah, this condition is AI with priority queue. Yeah. And as before, like if you can just like speak out loud.
Sure. How mentally demanding was the task? How mentally demanding task? Am I supposed to consider just the translation task, or the task of figuring out whether the AI output was useful, like all together, or
All together.
altogether? Yeah, okay. I would say it was 3/4 of the way through, maybe. How hurried or rushed was the pace of the task? Well, I didn't really feel rushed or anything. I was kind of, how successful were you? I don't think I was successful at all. Oh, sorry, wrong way. Uh, how hard did you have to work to accomplish your level of performance? Fairly hard. I had to remind myself of Python and Java simultaneously, I would say. How insecure, discouraged, irritated, stressed, or annoyed were you? Um, Moderate, yeah, I would say close to very high. Please describe your overall how you worked on this task and how you allocated your time across. Okay, so basically I looked at Java program to familiarize myself with its operation. I then looked at the generated Python programs to get a sense of uh, what the AI produced and tried to understand what the differences between the generated versions was. I then tried to translate the Java program method by method into Python. I decided to copy the first AI generated program um, com completely and modify it a method at a time to resemble the Java version. So yeah, that pretty much describes what I was doing. To what extent do you feel you understand how the Java implementation of the data structure works? Um, I would say a great deal, I guess. Why? Because I am relatively familiar with the underlying data structure, the priority queue, and the Java program did not rely on any unfamiliar classes or interfaces. Okay, how would you characterize the quality of the provided translations? Uh, well, I can't say that there were anything, I can't say that they were acceptable because they look like they had errors. Um, so I guess between poor and very poor. I would say I'm tempted to put very poor because once you have some errors in there, you kind of doubt the whole thing. Yeah, I would put very poor because one error kind of makes the whole thing, makes you doubt the whole thing once you see one error. Why? Because the generated programs had obvious errors. The errors made me doubt all of the output and made me scrutinize the generated programs much more, which slowed my progress. Doubt the output. Yeah, pretty much. How did the quality of the translations match your expectations of what could be produced by an AI system? What were my expectations? I don't know if I had any expectations for an AI produced translation. Quality was much worse than I expected. Was worse, met, better. I don't think it was. I guess it was worse because it it the AI was calling methods that didn't exist in the Python version and things like that. So I would expect it to get that part right. Like if it has accurate definitions of what's available in Python, I would expect it to not produce code that was obviously wrong and that could be statically verified. To what extent did you feel the provided translations were useful? Had errors? Yes, I felt that they had a great deal. Helped me complete the task. Useful? Maybe somewhat. Like there were some working parts at least, I guess. Helped you complete the task. I don't know. I would have to compare it to, I guess I'll find out in the next one how easy it was. I guess a little, I would say. Understand? Not at all. I think I understood the Java code better. Taught you something new about Python. Maybe I hadn't used the copy module a lot in my Python life, so maybe it taught me a little, reminded me that it existed, which is something. Did you feel the provided translations made your work in this task difficult versus easy? Difficult versus ease. I'm gonna put it in the middle. I don't know. It made it a little bit easier in that gave you some code, translated code to start with, but then it was made difficult by the fact that it had errors. So I think kind of in the middle on that one. Did you feel the provided translations made your work in this task slow versus fast? Definitely slowed it down. Did you feel the provided translations made your work in this task of the worst versus of the best quality? Hmm. Uh, how did that affect the quality? I'm going to give it a +1 because at least it gave you some code to work with, even though it had errors in it. Some parts seemed useful, and so it might provide you with better, like snippets of code that are better than what I might have thought of myself. Um, so if I could weed out the errors and things like that, it feels like I might have had some contribution, positive contribution to quality. What did you find most useful about the translations? So it gave me like a rough frame, like a rough outline of the original program, and saved me from translating boilerplate stuff. I would say. What did you find least well? It had errors. It had, I think it had, from what I recall, I think it had equivalent Python representations of Java code that weren't obvious. So from what I think it had things that worked the same way as Java, but it wasn't obvious at first glance to me. So I kind of had to do some thinking, and that wasn't useful to me, I would say. Were enough translations provided to you? I would have liked to have seen more. I was provided with enough. I was provided with too many. I would say too many because like the differences weren't obvious. I had to. So what did I do first? I switched between the different translations to visually spot differences, and I couldn't. And then I relied on diff. So maybe too many is what I would say for that. What additional information could we have provided alongside the translations to make them more useful to you? What additional information would you expect as part of an explanation of how the translation was made? So I'd say differences between the translations is something I would have liked, like in a diff output maybe. To something, so maybe something like a legend or a mapping between translation, like a mapping of common idioms between mapping of Java isms to Python isms, maybe, e.g. Is empty, I don't think the program did this, but length of, x equals 0. If you could tell me that all is empty is translated to length equals 0 or something like that, that sort of thing would be helpful. For the following work conditions, to what extent would AI-supported code translation be helpful? Normal working conditions. Under time pressure, working alone, working under, okay, so I'm going to say moderately. Under time pressure, slightly. The errors made, so the fact that there were errors there made it harder to work with under time pressure. So I'm going to slightly working alone. I don't know. It didn't really affect me too much. I'm working on code that only I would use. I'm working on code that team members or others would use. Working on experimental or prototype code. Okay. So I've just quickly checked off moderate for everything that doesn't have an answer that jumps out at me. I'm just going to go through these and maybe refine that. Is there any points, any of these where it would be very helpful? I don't know. Probably not. Okay, yeah, I'm satisfied with that. For which situations would AI-supported code translation be appropriate? When the code is used for mission critical, correctness is important. When the code's runtime performance is important. runtime performance is important. Maybe slightly. And there's a large code base, slightly, maybe even moderately, say, for a large code base. When the original code is written in a language with which I am unfamiliar. That's a difficult question to answer, because then I wouldn't even know if the generated code was correct or not. Maybe slightly appropriate, I guess. At least it would give you something to look at that you were familiar with. Code needs to be translated to a language with which I am unfamiliar. Maybe slightly. How useful would each of these kinds of AI models be for real code translation? A model that requires you to fix one problem for 1,000 lines of code. I mean, what was I looking at? I was looking at a program that was what, less than 100 lines of code, and seeing. So it's not useful. This is not useful. This is not useful. I was roughly in the 1 to 100. I was somewhere in between these two, and okay, I would say maybe that's not useful. Slightly useful, moderately useful. That kind of looks like a curve I would like, or I would be happy with. Is there any other feedback you would like to share with us about your experience on this task? Yes. The only thing I would say is that is possibly less helpful than generating no code at all. So maybe like an annotation that tells you I couldn't generate anything is better than generating the wrong code. So yeah. All right, there we go.
I'm just noting down your last comment. Give me 2 minutes. Okay. Thank you. Those were like really, really useful comments for us. So we're done with like 50% of the study. So if you want to take like a 5-10 minute break, we can like reconvene at 2:10 maybe. Or if you're okay to go,
Sure.
that's fine as well.
2:10 sounds good. I'm just gonna step away for 1 second. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll be
that's
back at
good.
2:10.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, I'm back.
All right. Okay, so let's start with the second task. So in this task, you will translate the try data structure from Java to Python, and you will do this one without the AI support. I'm just going to ping the link to the editor. It's the try.java is the source file, and the try.py is the one where you have to put your solution in. And as
Okay.
before, I will go on mute, and I'll remind you when there's 5 minutes left. So
Okay.
let's get started.
Okay. All right. Try class. This class implements a try object for storing a tree of strings. It basically builds a tree of nodes where each node represents a character in a string that has been stored in a try. Stored string is represented by a path in the try from the root to node, marked as an end of word. All right. Try class. All right. So try class. Inner class called try node. Each node has a hash map mapping character to node is word. New node gets a new hash map. Is word is false. I guess, yeah. Children, end of word, da da da. Neutral node. Cert, da 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 da. Merge, new, okay. Hmm. Okay. Okay. I'm going to start by implementing the try node because it's smaller and easier. Init maps to the constructor in the Java version. It's going to do some stuff for me. And then I have get children. Mm, what do I need here? I need self and all of these things. Self. Children is, it's going to be a dictionary. Self is word equals false. Okay, get children just returns the dictionary. Is and word returns is set end of word. Self is self is word equals is end of word. Okay. I'll take this guy there. And I'm going to move on to this guy here, init self. Part is not strictly necessary. Okay. Constructor. New node. Self root equals try node. So unlike the last time, I'm just going to quickly write myself a test framework or like a little mini test by doing t equals try. Okay, you've got your constructor down. Now you've got, let's move on to methods. Insert self word def find self word delete def recursive delete. Oops. Current node word index enumerate. Another enumerate def. Uh, okay, let's. Now I'm going to just go through and try to translate the implementations, starting with what looks to be the simplest one. This one just called self delete with self root word 0. Insert. Okay, insert takes the root for each character in the word. It compute if absent. Remind myself what compute if absent. Hash map compute if absent. Compute if absent. The specified key is not already associated with a value or is mapped to null, attempts to compute its value given using the given mapping function and enters it unless it's null. Okay. So for each character, if the character is not in the tree, it will compute a new node for the tree. Or it'll create a new node for the tree. Yeah, that maps C to that node. If it's already there, it'll keep going. So yeah, that makes sense. But I do the equivalent in Python would. So for C in what do I want to do here? Current thing has a dictionary. So I'm going to translate this using set default, which sets in this dictionary sets C to this expression if, so it's not exactly the same because so there's a difference here in that in this one, in the Python version, the node is always created. And then in this one, this thing only happens if that's not a faithful translation. I guess it doesn't matter. I can think of a better translation for this, but I will revisit it later. Current set end of word. Yeah. Find. Find says for each character, get if no, basically walk down the try. And if you get to node that's marked end, you found it, otherwise not. Okay. Oops. Current equals so root for C in word. node equals current children is get. It does take C. What does it return? I don't get to know that here, so I'm gonna, oops, I can't see my tabs because of sorry. I'm just gonna get a new tab. I can't see it because of Python dictionary get. I was gonna quickly check. I don't remember what it returns when the item is not in the dictionary. That's not the one I want. Python documentation is the worst. Dictionary objects? No, it's collections. Dict. Just gonna go in here and see if oh, let's get in my list. Nope. It's here somewhere. Get. There you go. Return value of key keys in return else default. If default is not given, defaults to none. Okay, good. Um, Sorry, my internet is lagging a little bit. Okay, good. Delete. Delete. Delete is done. Big delete. If index current node string to be deleted, the current depth that we've descended, true if the string is deleted. So this is if index is word length. So if we've descended the depth of the word we're searching for and we haven't hit a marker, end of word, then it's not there. Otherwise, it's not end of it. Was the end of the word. Okay, we've descended the length of the word. Current is not the end of the word, meaning we've found like the foo in foobar turned false. Otherwise, it is the end of word. Then you set end of word false. How would you do that? Oh, because you're deleting it. So you get rid of that. True if children. So you've got a current node. It's an end of word. It's not an end of word marker. The word is not here. If it is an end of word marker, it's only considered deleted if children, if the children are empty. Hmm, okay. A little bit unsure of that part, but I guess it doesn't stop me from translating it. Okay, if your index is, if the index is, if index is equal to length of word, if current not current is end of word, term false, current that end of word, false, false, return, current, get children, see the Python ism, len, and then you move on. Okay, so if you're not at the end of, where do you get the current character? Equals word index. Node is current children. That's if node equals none, turn false. False should delete current node. Okay. Equals delete node. So delete node word index plus one and not no oops and not node is the word. If the delete that get children. So I need to go check what the equivalent dictionary is. Del P30 here, if not enough. missing two required positional arguments, word and index in I have to remind myself if Python function overloading, if Python has function overloading. Python natives, yeah, okay.
Just a time check. We have 5 minutes remaining.
Okay. I'm gonna call this one delete at, and then I'm gonna say delete at. Then that should work. Delete takes two positional arguments before word given. Delete takes that and that. Oh, delete at. Assertion error, delete. Returns false when it, oh, no, yeah, I did. I stuck it in there, so what is the problem? Oh, doesn't return. Oh, but this one doesn't either. It's odd. There's no way to check if you have returned something. I'm going to keep it because enumerate. Okay, I can already predict this is going to recursive. Enumerate strings stored in the try. Returns a list of strings. Recursive function to enumerate. Try. Current state of the string. Current node entries. So enumerate isn't. So this one needs to be implemented in. I'm just gonna call it enumerate recursive for now. Entries. So entries is gonna be a new list. Enumerate. New string builder entry. So what do I need here? I need string, something that can be a string. You can append a character to it, or you can delete character at the end. So I think I can just use a string. What would it? I'm just going to quickly look for an equivalent Python string builder. I could use a list, but I don't. Do I want to use a list? Do I? Um, all right, so I'm going to use a list for that for the time being. Entries, enumerate. What does it do with this string builder? Does it? So it's just kind of like it's working memory. At the very end, you just use it to add something. So I guess an empty list would be fine. Time being, root, self, root, and then trees.
So we're done with the 30 minutes for this one.
Okay.
Uh, I'm just gonna ping you the survey gizmo link now for this part of the task.
Mm-hmm. Chat.
It's a P30, yeah. This one is with no AI and try.
How mentally demanding was the task? I think our last one was greater than, I think I put 15 for the last one. This one felt less mentally demanding. Not sure how. Maybe somewhere in the mid, something between 1 and 10. I don't know. Maybe a little bit higher than 5, 7 or 8, maybe. 8, I guess. How hurried or rushed? I didn't feel rushed. I felt, even though I didn't finish it, I didn't feel rushed. How successful were you in accomplishing what you set out to do? I was, even though I didn't finish, I felt like I was headed in the right direction, and I didn't. I was confident that I would, by the time I got to the end, that it would work, which I didn't feel the last one. How hard did you have to work to accomplish your task? Um, uh, didn't feel like I had to work harder than the last one, maybe the same or less. I don't remember what I put for the last one, but say this one was maybe equal, maybe similar to the mental effort, 8. How insecure, discouraged, irritated? Not very. I felt good. Please describe your overall approach. Um, started out by I started out with the smallest class, translating its structure first, and then filling in the details. And I moved on to the larger class, translating its structure first and filling in the detail. And filling in the details, I try to translate small methods before larger ones. To what extent do you feel you understand how the Java implementation, why it used classes and interfaces that I was familiar with, and it did not use too many other classes and interfaces. Okay. Is there any other feedback you would like to share with us?
Oh, I think enough.
Did I skip one?
Can you go back once? I think somehow I did.
Okay, I clicked back, nothing. Click back again. So I'm here at 40%. If I click
Okay.
next once, it goes straight to other feedback.
Okay.
Did I miss yeah, it's 10, 11, so 40, and then this one is question 12.
Oh, maybe not actually. Yeah.
Okay. What other feedback? So I would say this was easier by being forced to start with an empty Python file with no opportunity to take a shortcut and copy the AI generated program. I had to methodically approach the translation line at a time, which made it easier to think about. I felt that consuming small chunks of the Java program and at a time made the task easier and did not overload me with information. Yeah, I guess so. Oh, consuming small chunks of Java program at a time and task getting done. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you. There is this final survey. This is like the post-completion, post-study questionnaire that we have. So if you can just fill out that one as well.
Please enter.
P30, 30.
I felt that I understood the Java program better and felt that I had a better handle on how the translation was going. I was more confident that by the end of the translation process, I would have either a working program or a program that I understood well enough to be able to debug. Working with the AI made me feel like I had multiple tasks, i.e., not just translating Java to Python, but also what do I want to say here? But also double checking and verifying that the AI produced working code. In translating, I was confident that what I was writing was correct. On reading the AI generated code, I was not always confident that what I was reading was correct when it when I found a bug in the generated code. It made me doubt the rest of the generated code and slowed my progress. So beyond code translation, what other kinds of AI support would you desire for working with code? So I would like AI to, what would I want? Maybe this is specific to Python, but I would like AI to help me find documentation easier. I would like it to be able to uh, skip irrelevant pages in a Google search, i.e. avoid blog spam and other low quality sources of info, and direct me to higher quality sources of info sooner, I suppose. What else could it do for me that I would like beyond code translation? Direct me to documentation. If it if it could generate test code for me, that would be lovely. If it could do that. What else would I like? Mm, uh, guess that's pretty much it. Can't think of anything better, but yeah, I guess that covers it. Okay. To which gender identity do you most identify? Do you consider yourself primarily a data scientist, designer, manager, researcher, software architect, software engineer? Software engineer. Have you used AI or machine learning algorithms as part of your work? I would say no. Have you performed code translation tasks in your work? Code translation. In fact, I have. I'm gonna have to think about this since you're asking me for an example. Code translation. I've done a lot of debugging. I've done a lot of. Okay. So I've had to translate. What am I translating? I've had to translate
Personal shell scripts that I use to help me in my day-to-day activities into Ansible scripts. Shell scripts resemble traditional programs. Ansible scripts are not really not really programs. I did this because Ansible was better suited to the task. That's the summary. Would you like to participate? If so, provide us. Sure.
So Ansible scripts are they like more like configurations and
Yeah. It's so the Ansible stuff is written in YAML. So it's kind of like writing a program in something that's not a programming language. It's similar, like things in the
just
past.
defining your
defining the steps, but it's not really a programming language. And so it forces you to not do things in like a programming fashion.
Right.
And so you avoid having to do if, else, and this, and loops and things like that because it's just not the way it is. So, but yeah, let me just clarify. YAML. Yeah, okay. Right.
All right. Thank you so much. We're done with the study. I'm going to stop the recording now.